Hello everybody, meteorologist Jacob Campbell here with your WeatherNow forecast. So today I am going to talk a little bit about, and it's kind of cut off the map down here, Subtropical Depression Andrea. So this is the second subtropical storm Andrea that we've had. And so basically what this is it's similar to a tropical storm, however these form in the subtropics. So right at the equator, above it, on the equator, you have what's called the ITCZ, or the Intertropical Convergence Zone. There tend to be some, thunderstorms that go on around there because there's convergence at the surface, and then after you get outside that, all the way to about 30 degrees north, you have the tropics, and so the tropics are typically where your tropical storms start to form, and then as they push to the to the west, they can form into hurricanes and whatnot. Subtropical storms are a little bit different. They form above the subtropics, above the tropics and the subtropics, the little zone between pretty much the tropics and the poles. And so what you get is you have a low pressure system that starts to become a closed system. And these feed off of, actually, instead of warm energy from the ocean, they feed off of cold air from short waves that come in, and then eventually they get strong enough so that they can close themselves off, and then they begin, rotating and whatnot. And there are rare types of these subtropical storms that do end up turning into a tropical storm and hurricanes and whatnot. However, Subtropical Storm Andrea only had winds to justify calling it, a subtropical storm, and it is not going to make its way into a tropical storm or a hurricane. This is actually in the late stages of its life. It will move slightly to the north-northwest, and then it will do a hard right as another short wave. Remember, this is a closed system, so another short wave is going to come down and disturb it, and it's going to push it back off to the east as this short wave pushes through, and it's essentially going to rip it apart as the jet stream dips way to the south. So there's not anything to worry about along the east coast about Subtropical Storm Andrea. It is currently breaking down, and it will be pushing off to the east, so everyone is good. It is days away from the Atlantic hurricane season, so to see one so early, not a hurricane, but a subtropical storm, to see one so early is definitely interesting. So we're going to move on to the SPC risk for Wednesday. And so we see this area within Kansas City highlighted in the slight risk, and then the areas directly around it will be in marginal. Indiana gets completely skipped over, and then we go to marginal risk throughout parts of Indiana all the way up to the New York area. And so essentially what we're seeing is the remnants from the severe storms the previous 2 days kind of move through the area. Illinois is really going to be hit by those, remnants more so than this Kansas City area. However, the Kansas City area can expect some hail as the primary threat. Damaging winds are a slightly lower threat, and same with tornadoes. I think that tornadoes are only a marginal threat in this, so that's good news. But the bad news is flooding. So this area has consistently gotten a significant amount of rainfall, which means that you guys can expect some flooding along rivers. Your drainage, your sewer systems may even back up a bit as some heavier rain is expected, and we'll get into rain totals here in a little bit. Moving on to Thursday, the Storm Prediction Center has put an enhanced risk for this Texas through western Oklahoma and then up into central Kansas. And it's unclear what they're expecting right now, but based on Cape values and shear values, there could be some tornadoes. Hail is a definite threat, and so is wind. Also, if we take a look at the East Coast here, stretching all the way from about Columbus, Ohio, all the way over to Albany, and really the border between New York and Vermont, New York and Massachusetts and Connecticut. We've got this slight risk of severe storms, which is triggered by those storms that really hammered Texas and Oklahoma yesterday being Monday. They're going to push through Illinois and Indiana, and then they're going to push into Columbus, Ohio, and then push through the East Coast. It wouldn't surprise me, based on what the NAM is currently showing, if this marginal risk was extended into Indiana and Illinois, and these marginal risks connected, because through the night, Wednesday night and into Thursday morning, the NAM model is showing a bowing front kind of pushing out to the east, and this bowing front could bring some wind and hail and whatnot to the Illinois, Indiana area. But the primary threat from these storms is going to be wind and not hail, because the Cape is not so much there as the wind shear is, which once again we'll look at in a minute. So I believe that that's all for there. Let's move over to, give me a second. There we go. Let's move over to weathermodels.com. So this is the European model. I typically use the European model just because I like its accuracy. Some people don't think it's all that accurate. I happen to think that it is really accurate. So we're going to move. This is the 500 millibar winds. We're going to move into the evening hours on Wednesday. And so what we end up seeing is that we've got winds in the area of about 40 to 60 knots in some areas, and we've got a little bit of divergence aloft in this Kansas area. And so divergence aloft means that there's convergence at the surface, so air is coming together, and then it's got nowhere to go but up. So it goes up until it finds a point where it can then move away from that updraft that you're going to see in the Kansas area, and Kansas and Oklahoma. And this is where you see that slight risk really in I believe that it is northeastern Kansas. And the wind speeds aren't that fast, so you're going to see a slight tilt to these updrafts, but not so great of a tilt that you're going to have, very long-lived storm systems moving through. You may have a couple of long-lived ones, and really this is starting to look like this may form a squall line that moves through, so wind is going to be the primary threat in a squall line, as well as hail. And then when we push into like Thursday night, we see that we've got more divergence here in the Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas area, as well as wind speeds getting up to about 90 knots in certain areas throughout this system. And so not only do you have higher wind speeds to tilt that updraft, you also have the divergence aloft that allows the updraft to really intensify. So Thursday is looking a lot more promising for severe storms in that area. But once again, like all of the rain that they keep getting, it's insane. I'm surprised that they're getting this much rain. Mordecai El Niños are you normally have a significant amount of rainfall, but this is a little intense. So we also see another little shortwave dip down in that New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania area, which is going to bring that slight risk for storms there. You do get some divergence in this, and then you also have a little bit of higher wind speeds in the 70 to 80 knot area, which could tilt the updraft. But wind is going to be your primary concern, not so much hail, although you could get some hail. Let's move on to Cape. And so as we push into the day on Wednesday, we do see some high Cape values. However, they're really focused to the south of that Kansas, Missouri area where we get the main risk. So you're not going to see nearly as much in the way of hail as you are wind. And that was to be expected. This is really a classic squall line setup, so you might see more squall lines and less supercells, which is really good because you're not going to get as many tornadoes that way. And then as we move into the day on Thursday, we do have that a little bit of Cape out here in the Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York area, which is going to help sustain those thunderstorms. But the The Cape is a little too low to really have a large, outbreak of severe thunderstorms. So that's good news for all of you on the East Coast. And now we're going to push further into the, here we go, earlier into the day. We do have some higher Cape values for Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas in that enhanced risk area, which could signal some supercells. And so you have both the high wind shear, and you have also the high-ish Cape values kind of maxing out around 3,000 in some areas, but really hovering around the 2,000 joules per kilogram area. So you may be on the lookout for some supercells, which means that you have a higher risk for tornadoes. Now, moving on to the NAM simulated radar. So we do see that squall line that I was talking about. Oh, here's Wednesday. Sorry about that. There we go. A small squall line kind of starts to set up here in the evening to nighttime hours on Wednesday. There may be some isolated supercells, but I don't see a widespread, supercell outbreak happening. And then this will push off to the east. And this will intensify actually during the morning hours as it pushes through Illinois and Indiana. And that's why I say that there may be an extension of that marginal risk throughout Illinois and Indiana just for those morning hours. But I'm not confirming anything. The SPC will do as they see fit, and that's fine. But as it pushes off to the west, it starts to re-intensify again to the east. It starts to re-intensify again out here in the New York, Pennsylvania area. And then you also saw some of that squall line kind of pushing through Ohio as well, which will bring that slight risk and marginal risk for those areas. And then the last thing that I wanted to look at was total precipitation. And so as we move through, I'm just going to go until early morning hours on Friday, really trying to get as close to midnight Thursday as I can. Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, Missouri, and Iowa, you guys are going to see a ton of rainfall. And so you guys are getting rainfall on top of rainfall. I know that you guys have had a lot of flood warnings and flash flood warnings recently, and this will only add to that. So definitely take precautions if you live in those areas. Who knows where it will flood or if it will flood, but based on these rainfall amounts, it looks like we're getting 3 inches in some areas, really the average hovering around 1 to 2 inches of new rain since essentially since recording this today. At about 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So if you live in those areas, once again, flooding is a concern. So before I end the video, today marks 2 months after I started this YouTube channel, and I thank all of you for the support. I'm up to 600 subscribers. I am having a blast doing this, and I hope that you guys are enjoying it as well. I'm going to try to plan something for the 1,000 subscriber mark, which shouldn't be too long. So I hope that you guys look forward to that, and I hope that you all are having a wonderful Tuesday. So please like, comment, subscribe, and I thank you all for watching. Have a good one.